From the biggest lemurs in the world to the unicorns of the sea, here are 9 animals you will never see in a zoo. Some of them might even surprise you. Number 9. Indri. The Indri is the biggest lemur of them all. Because of this, it has next to no tail, but that doesn't bother them. They're able to hop from tree to tree, often jumping up to 30 feet high. All species of lemur hail from Madagascar, which is a hub of unique biological diversity. Lemurs are primates that evolved separately from monkeys, but they share a lot of features within them. However, lemurs display significant diversity in their own right, as evidenced by the Indri's uniqueness. There are no Indris in captivity anywhere in the world, even though people have tried. When these Indris were put in captivity, none of them lived for longer than a year. No one is positive why this is, but some scientists think that this is because the Indris have a very particular diet involving different kinds of food at different points across the day. This is so difficult to mimic outside of the wild. Furthermore, the Indris don't mate in captivity, so there is little hope for keeping them for long. Number 8. Mountain gorilla. For years, scientists thought that mountain gorillas would go extinct by the end of the 20th century, but they made it. Just barely. Today, they are one of the most endangered species of gorilla in the world. We all know that gorillas are some of the mightiest animals in the world. Their strength and intelligence make them well equipped to handle whatever comes their way. But sadly, mountain gorilla numbers are dwindling. In the 1960s and 70s, zoos tried to take them from their habitat and breed them in captivity, but to no avail. For one thing, the gorillas just don't survive in zoos. Even though lowland gorillas do pretty well in captivity, scientists aren't quite sure why this is the case, but they think that it might have something to do with the complexity of the mountain gorilla's diet. It would be far too risky to extract enough gorillas from the already threatened populations that would be needed to sustain a stable population in captivity. It could do some serious harm, given that there are only about 880 of them still living. Such incredible creatures, which are relative to humans by the way, deserve respect and protection. Number 7. Hirola. The Hirola, a kind of antelope, lives close to the Kenyan-Somalian border where they remain unprotected. This isn't good news for them because there are only about 500 of them left on Earth. This is what earns them the status of the world's most endangered antelope. Antelopes are pretty much everywhere, but some species have clearly fared better than others in the biological lottery. Why are there so few of these animals left in the world? There are a couple of reasons. First, a disease called rinderpest eradicated about 90% of the individuals left at the time, and they haven't really recovered ever since. And since these antelope primarily eat grass, the ever-encroaching livestock and animal agriculture eating up their grass hasn't left the Hirola with much to eat. Plus, elephants recently left the Hirola's area, and they're responsible for clearing the way for grass to grow in the first place. Combine all of these factors and it spells bad news for this subspecies of antelope. Due to their endangered status, there are none in captivity. Every time zoos have tried to breed them, they've failed miserably. It's just too risky to keep one in a zoo. Sorry folks. And now for number 6, but be sure to subscribe to Epic Wildlife and click the notification bell so you don't miss out on more videos like these. Number 6. The Javan Rhino. Some zoologists think that the Javan rhino is the rarest big animal on Earth. Estimates say that there are only around 63 of these rhinos left in the world, and all of them live in Indonesia's Ujung Kulon National Park. Many zoos have been able to keep rhinos in captivity. Lots of them aren't particularly endangered, and with the right treatment, they tend to do pretty well in zoo environments. But the Javan rhino is a different story. Because there are so few of them, they're really hard to research. All 63 of these rhinos live in complicated, dense jungle environments, and zookeepers simply cannot replicate these intricate conditions in the zoo. Due to these facts, the Javan rhino has never been put into captivity. It would be far too dangerous to take a heavily endangered species from the wild without knowledge of how to keep them alive and then propagate them. It's disappointing and sad that we may never be able to see this solitary animal in the flesh, but at least you can check out other rhinos that currently live in other zoos. Number 5. Blue whale. Do you know what the biggest animal is in the world? As you might have guessed, that title belongs to the blue whale. Weighing up to 200 tons and growing as long as 105 feet, blue whales are the largest animals to have ever roamed the earth. Of all time. Big animals are both difficult to capture and difficult to house. But we've gotten pretty good at giving some large animals a place to live, such as elephants and whale sharks. But you are never going to see a blue whale in an aquarium. First off, you'd need a tank big enough to house a blue whale, and given their size, that's unlikely to happen. But an even crazier logistical problem is how to feed them. They can eat around 8,000 pounds during their peak periods of consumption, and their stomachs can handle 2,200 pounds of food in general. So not only would the tank be expensive, but it would be pricey just to feed them. Their tongues alone can weigh up to the same as an elephant. Because of all of this, they're not going to be in an aquarium anytime soon, nor should they, to be honest. Hopefully you can see one on a whale watching tour one day. Number 4. Kakapos. The kakapo is quite the oddball. They're a flightless parrot that can weigh up to 8 pounds, making them one of the largest parrots in the world. Sometimes, rarity is a significant factor in housing animals in captivity. That's one reason why the New Zealand native kakapo are never going to be seen at the zoo. They're the only species of parrot on Earth that can't fly and is bound to the ground. They're also critically endangered. There are only 211 left right now, and they can only be found on a few little sanctuary islands around New Zealand. Most people describe kakapos as goofy and hilarious. They make really odd noises. For example, males will make loud booms and wheezes to attract females. Both sexes make absurdly loud scracking noises. Once a mate arrives, the male puts on a show. This is called lek breeding, and kakapos are the only parrot who do this. They're also nocturnal and can live up to 90 years. Talk about a weird and wonderful bird. Their endangered status means that you won't be able to see one of these in a zoo anytime soon. Efforts are in place to conserve them, however. In 2019, 70 new kakapos made it into the world, so hopefully we'll all be able to appreciate the kakapo's strangeness in person one day. Number 3. Great white shark. You'll never see a great white shark in captivity. Sharks are a staple of most great aquariums. You can often see giant orcas and whale sharks in aquariums, as well as other more common ones. You might think this is because of the great white shark's reputation. It's thought to be one of the most ruthless and dangerous sharks in the world. But actually, they're kept out of aquariums for their own safety, not ours or the animals that they would be surrounded by. In the 1970s, a few aquariums like SeaWorld tried to house some great white sharks, but they died within a couple of weeks at maximum. When they were put into the tanks, the great whites would decline their meals, and they would even have trouble swimming like they did normally in the ocean. Some think they don't last long in tanks because they need to move long distances to survive. In a small space, they tend to stop moving, and if they stop moving, then they have a hard time breathing. The Monterey Bay Aquarium was able to house a great white shark for 198 days, which remains the record for the amount of time a great white has been in captivity. But this took some serious adjustments on their part, involving the construction of a particular kind of egg-shaped tank. Furthermore, it ended up killing 2 other sharks in captivity and was thus released back into the ocean. Number 2. Pink Fairy Armadillo. Don't take a bite out of our next entry. It may look like a piece of sushi, but it's actually a tiny armadillo with a strange pink shell on its back. That shell is this armadillo's weird way of pumping blood throughout its body, which it can do on command in order to adjust its body temperature. It is actually the tiniest armadillo among all of them, and it spends its days entirely underground. Because of this, it is barely ever seen in its homeland, the Argentinian deserts. This is one of the reasons that they're so hard to find. Mariella Suprina, an armadillo researcher who has studied the regions where fairy armadillos live for 13 years, has never seen one in person. And the prognosis for those fairy armadillos that make it above ground only to be caught is grim. If they aren't hit by a car while trying to cross the road, Suprina claims that around 95% of fairy armadillos die in under 8 days when removed from their natural habitat. The pink fairy armadillo devotes all of its energy to digging underground, so it's learned to make good use of its tail as if it were an extra limb. They also have a sort of plate on their butt which they can use to compact the dirt as they keep on mining. They are undoubtedly odd little critters, but they're definitely interesting. Number 1. Narwhal. Narwhals are the beloved unicorns of the sea. Unicorns, alas, do not exist in this world, but we've got something pretty close if you look a little more deeply into the water. You might just catch a glimpse of a narwhal, whose horns can grow up to 10 feet long. No one really knows what the horn is for, but it may be part of the narwhal's mating rituals. One weird thing about this horn is that it's not really a horn at all. Rather, it's just one of the narwhal's 2 teeth. Weird to think that that long horn is really just a humongous tooth. Narwhals are dolphin-like creatures that can weigh up to 1.5 tons and grow to be around 20 feet long. They hang out in packs to hunt, and are most often spotted with around 15 to 20 other narwhals. They don't migrate like whales though. They predominantly live in the Arctic seas around Canada, Norway, and Russia. However, you're never going to be able to see a narwhal in captivity. There were a few attempts at getting them to live in a zoo-like place in the 1960s and 70s, but they didn't go too well. Sadly, all of the narwhals that were caught and kept in enclosures during that period died within just a few months. Every narwhal that has ever been put in a tank has failed to make it very long. Compare this to their roughly 100-year lifespan outside of captivity, and it's a striking statistic. There's something poetic about that. This seemingly mythical creature that excites our imaginations cannot be tamed. Like all wildlife and creatures of the earth, they should and must run free. Thanks for watching. Which animal would you like to see in real life and why? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like while you're at it, and click that notification bell to stay up to date on all our newest and coolest videos. See you soon.